What is up, dudes? Lady dudes, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I have another deck profile for you, finally. Today I'm doing TELLARKNIGHts, which is a deck that for the longest time I was not really that interested in. I thought the artwork was really cool for it, but I never really got into it. And as of a little bit more recently, I've actually been getting into it for the first time. And I know I'm a little tardy to the party because TELLARKNIGHts already had their heyday. TELLARKNIGHts were already one of the best decks in the game at one point, and they've kind of been power crept now, but I still think this is like probably one of the top decks that could easily get support from Konami, maybe a Link monster, maybe just some new monsters, or traps, or spells, or whatever. They could honestly get anything because they just need help. They just need speed is their main thing. Power is there, speed is not, so that's what they're missing the most. But yeah, I mean, guess we'll just get right into the list. But before I do, I will say this is like a classic ramp deck where it starts very, very slow. And you can have hands that start much faster than other hands, but generally, this deck starts very, very slow. So the whole idea is to pretty much get your like monster resource game going, set up your graveyard, set up your hand, set up everything, and then every turn you just get to the point where you're like special summoning 3 or 4 monsters every turn, and it just feels impossible for your opponent to kind of climb back in. So you kind of play a stun variant to slow your opponent down long enough for you to get your resources rolling, and then it just feels impossible for your opponent from there. So now that you know the idea of the deck, let's start off with the main monster. So Tellarknight Deneb, this is my favorite one for sure. She's your main just Rhoda search card Stratos, not Rhoda, she's your Stratos, Oviraptor, Hanzo, whatever you want to call her. On summon, normal or special, she can search you any Tellarknight monster from deck to your hand, and that's pretty much it. If you don't know, all the Tellarknights have effects that pop off on summon, and this is hers. She's the most important one because she just gets you stuff straight from deck, and yeah, that's pretty much it for her. She's the most important starter probably. We'll just put her there. Then we play 3, so Tellarknight Altair. He is the most important for any kind of combo, because once you get your graveyard set up, he is the most important one by far. He says on summon, you can special summon 1 Tellarknight monster from your graveyard in defense position, but you cannot attack except with Tellarknights for the rest of the turn. So he locks into Tellarknights, but that's fine because like you always are maneuvering with Tellarknights in the extra deck. In the main deck, like, it's not a big deal. It's really not that big of a restriction because how powerful some of their extra deck monsters are. But she's the most important starter probably to just get you set up like for next turn by getting Tellarknights to your hand, and he's the most important for combos once you get your graveyard set up. Then I do play 3 Unical High. Unical High is probably like it's like a pseudo starter. Like, it's not great, but it's good enough that where like you need to just have like consistency, and so we'll take a pseudo starter over not opening Deneb or whatever. So Unical High pretty much just says on summon, send any Tellarknight monster from your decks to the graveyard. If you don't pair this with any revival spells or traps, then obviously this can be really rough, but you play a good amount. We play, I believe, 10 or at least 10 cards that can get you straight into a revival spell or trap, so I'm not super worried about it. But yeah, Unical High. She's also 1800, she's the biggest one, and yeah, you just need some form of starter, and she helps with that. Then the last one I play is 2, so Tellarknight Vega. I've seen some people play this at 1, as well as seeing some people play Unical High at 2, but I'm honestly looking at consistency. I'm just trying to see like a Tellarknight monster every turn if I can. So this is like the key to that, because we also have cards that can help, get you into other ones straight from the deck, sort of pseudo starter cards. But Vega pretty much says on summon, you can special summon any Tellarknight monster from your hand. So she comes up in certain combos where if you have a lot in hand, maybe open with Rhoda, or you just hard open this with like 1 or 2 Tellarknights in hand, this makes it a little less cloggy, right? Because you just drop this, pull another one like Deneb out of hand, Deneb searches, and you actually got a decent plus out of it. So she definitely comes up in certain combos, just being a nice little extender. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you if you played 2, but I also play Desires, and I know she comes up in specific combos sometimes where you kind of need her because you need the extra body on board. And then we move into hand traps. So as far as the monster hand traps, I only really play 2 Ash Blossom, nothing else really, because the problem is with this deck, it's a going first deck, absolutely. Because it's so slow, it has to be a going first deck right now. So I wanted to play hand traps, but I didn't want to play so many hand traps that it affects my opening hands, like consistency wise, because like if I see too many hand traps, but I don't even see ways to like get my plays started, because like I said, it's a ramp deck, starts slow. So if I don't even see cards to like get my resources like into grave and get it started that way, then I can really struggle. So I want to play some hand traps to hopefully I see if I do like lose the die roll and go second, but I didn't want to play too many that it affects the consistency of the deck. So only 2 Ash Blossom. There. Whoa, that is wrong. That is wrong. You didn't see that. Nothing happening here. All right, then we move to the spells. There, so we start with 2, so Tellarknight Skybridge. I actually thought about putting this card at 3 because it actually helps so much with just getting you to the Tellarknights you like the most. But pretty much this card just says target 1 Tellarknight monster you control, then you special summon a Tellarknight monster with a different name from that one, and if you do, shuffle the first one you targeted back into the deck. But also, while the monster that you just special summoned is face up on the field, you cannot special summon monsters except for Tellarknight monsters, period. So that's usually fine because, like I said, like you usually don't use extra deck stuff outside of the Tellarknights. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, this is pretty much like if you open just Vega or just Unical High, you can use this, or even Altair by himself, because you need something engraved to really make him have value. You just summon them, and then you use this to pull Deneb out. Like, you shuffle the first... If this tributed, that'd be so clean, because you could literally, like, summon Deneb to search, then tribute Deneb to special Altair, and Altair would special Deneb back. Like, I feel like that would be so clean. I mean, obviously I get why that would be a little bit busted, because you'd be able to just get back your card anyway. But I think you'd already have to have a target engraved for that to actually apply. But yeah, it's like a pseudo starter card if you see it with any of the bad Tellarknights, and it just extends even if you see it with the good ones. I mean, you could literally open Deneb in this, which is the best starter, summon Deneb to search, then activate this to... you can even special Vega to special summon the one from hand you just searched, or special summon Unical High to set up your graveyard a little bit. You know, whatever you want. There's so much you can do with a lot of these cards. So that 1 Rhoda. This is a you know, it's a warrior deck. Like and this is so clean because this is multiple times. This is just like my hand is like a little awkward, but this card just being whatever Tellarknight I want. Usually it's Deneb, but if you already have like a decent hand, you just search like Vega, and Vega's your extender, your really nice extender to set you up, or you search Altair because he'll be your follow-up play next turn or something, you know, like that. 1 Monster Reborn. This is one of the, you know, semi-recent cards that this deck has gotten back, because this deck really needs the revival spells and traps. So Reborn is really nice to just grab a Tellarknight back from grave, because all their effects pop off on summon to plus you. So if you have like Deneb, then this is just a +1. If you have Altair with another one engraved, this is like a +1. A lot of times it's just like almost just a straight +1 or an inadvertent +1. Like especially Unical High sending 1, but you needed that 1 engraved, so it's not straight up a +1, but it's like a +1.5 if I'd call it. There. Then we have 2 Pot of Desires here. I really wanted to play some kind of form of draw power, and I think Desires is probably the best way to go. I thought about playing Extravagance and just playing like 3 of like your main extra deck monsters and just like going balls deep. But at the end of the day, I kind of landed on this, and maybe I need to test Desires and really just not even test Desires, but just do some test hands with Extravagance and just try banishing 6 of these at random and seeing how often, because I don't know what the ratios are, how often I can live like a Trevere or live like and Bat Lamias, because I kind of need both and I can't lose either. So I ended up going with Desires for right now. I really hope at some point we get some kind of trap card that works better than these, but for now we're kind of stuck with these ones. So 2 Desires. You know, I play 11, 3 of all of them except Vega, and Vega is easily the least important one, so that one is totally not a big deal if it gets banished. I'm more worried about Deneb or Altair, because that just cuts off your resource gain. at that point. So that's the only two I'm really worried about in this deck, but you know, it is what it is. Then we move on to the trap card. So not a very big spell lineup, but this deck is a stun deck, so obviously the traps are going to be much more in abundance. So we start with Stellar Nova Alpha. You need this card. It's literally just says negate anything, negate any monster effect, spell effect, trap effect, activation by sending one Tellarknight monster you control to the graveyard, and then if you destroy the card you negated, and if you do, draw one card. So it's just insane. Like, negate anything. Obviously, getting rid of the Tellarknight sucks, but the redraw definitely helps with, you know, so it's not a complete minus there. And I play 3 Call the Haunted. I know a lot of people look at this card and they're like, Call the Haunted in 2019? Come on, dude. The card is bad. And I think objectively the card is bad relative to power creeping that's happened as of recently, as of in the last, you know, 10 years. But still, because of Trevere, because it's a continuous trap, actually gives it extra value in this deck, more value than it would. God, the lighting keeps changing. The sun is going crazy out there. But yeah, pretty much Call the Haunted. It's just a revival trap. This is how, like, you get advantage on your opponent's turn. You're just reviving your Tellarknights. You're, like, reviving Altair. You're specialing Vega from grave. Then Vega specialing Deneb from hand. And Deneb is searching you one. So literally you activate Call the Haunted right there and you, like, literally +3'd. So it's literally insane. And then you can, like, literally make Trevere and bounce this back to hand and then reset it again next turn. So it's really, really insane. So a lot of these continuous traps, and this is the one, this may be the card in the extra deck I'm the most iffy on. Fiendish Chain. At one point this card was an automatic 3-of in this deck. I don't know that it is now. It's a continuous trap and it's a decent, like, just negate, but it almost has, like, is like the same power level in terms of a negate as, like, Impermanence, but Impermanence is a hand trap, so it can be used, like, going second. So that's, like, the thing, but Impermanence can't be bounced back to hand with Trevere, but I don't know. I like it enough, I think, right now. This could be another hand trap, maybe, if you wanted to really take it out. But for now, it's pretty much just a quick little negate card, and then it stays on the field, and Trevere can bounce it back to your hand as the main goal of that. I think this card will be power crept by the new card coming out in Dark Neostorm, for this deck at least. Like, you just sub in that one as a 3-of, because the new one is actually so good. And then for my kind of, like, I guess you could say spicy, but I don't know how spicy this is for Tellarknight specifically, but I do play the Trap Trick engine. I think when you're playing just a generic trap deck like this, you could play Solemns, you could play a bunch of whatever, but I found that I think Trap Trick is probably the best way to go. Just the versatility and options it gives you is too strong, and also being able to activate whatever you set on the fly that same exact turn is really, really good. So I'm playing Trap Trick, and you'll see why in a second. So again, to all my Trap Trick targets, I start with 3 back to the front. These are 3 more revival traps. Obviously, it doesn't stay on the field for you to bounce back with Trevere, but that's okay. This is, like, the final piece of, like, my revival spells and traps, because half the time, like, that's what makes Unical High, like, so much better in this version, is because, like, it's fine as long as you see it with any of your 10 revival traps. So back to the front, Trap Trick to get you to back to the front, Call the Haunted, and then your 1 Monster Reborn. So you literally have so many revival, like, spells and traps, because you're just trying to have the consistency of, like, getting your stuff rolling again next turn. So that's, like, really, really strong. Sometimes I do see multiple revival stuff, but that just allows you to grind. So I never really fret about it too much. I only fret about it if I see only revival stuff and no like, stun stuff. They are right now playing Lost Wind. If I were you, if you have Impermanence, play Impermanence, because, like, the hand trap is so much more, I think, like, not blanketing, but so much better for being coverage for what this deck's biggest weakness is. Because deck's biggest weakness is, like, losing the die roll, going second. This deck's already a slow-ass ramp deck. So you need to, like, hit your opponent with a hand trap going second, probably, unless they're playing a really slow deck too. You kind of need to hit them with a hand trap. So I'd play Impermanence. It can still be pulled out with Trap Trick to, you know, be set and, you know, negate from there. But obviously Lost Wind has a higher ceiling, but Impermanence is so much better to actually cover up the weakness. This deck has high ceiling cards, like, when it gets to what it's, like, aiming to, so you're not super worried about that. As far as just generic removal, I do play 2 Compulsory Evacuation Device. I know a lot of people are down on this card, but this card's actually really good. People sleep on this card. We have a pretty heavy sort of. We have a couple decks that are very normal summon reliant right now. This card is like really insane against Salamangreats. Like people sleep on how good this is against Salamangreats, because the whole goal with Salamangreats is essentially like normal summon something, get a plus. Like normal summon Debug, search Gazelle, link Debug off for Balinks, and then special Gazelle and get Gazelle extends. But if they summon Debug, you don't even have to negate the Debug, bounce it back to hand. They searched Gazelle, and now they don't have a single other extender in their deck pretty much that can let them play through this. Play through that, like, and they don't have any monsters on board. They may be able to set 1 or 2 face down cards, depends on the kind of version of the deck they're playing, but that's pretty much it, and they almost pass at that. And this, so in those certain matchups, also like Thunder Dragons, you can literally just bounce when they make the Saryuja, you just bounce that, and then maybe their board ends with like 1 Colossus, or it depends, maybe they have a lot of extenders, but if you do that, then like half the time they just end with like 1 Colossus on board, which is way easy for you to handle at least. And then the last card I play is 2 Heavy Storm Duster. We do have a good amount of back row stuff. You go first against Salamangreats. This wipes the Sanctuary and the Roar, or the Roar and maybe another face down card they have if you don't care about the Sanctuary. It's good against Altergeist. I know the Altergeists are not at the top right now, but I think they're still floating around and people are trying to make it work, because I know a lot of people love that deck. Sky Striker's really good against. The only thing it's really bad against specifically is like Orcust and Thunder Dragons, but they're not in crazy abundance. The 2 most represented decks are Salamangreats and Striker, so not worried, not too crazy. It's only a 2 of, but you have the trap tricks to pull it out if it's like a specific blowout in a matchup, so that's why it's there. 2 of. So then let's move into the extra deck here real quick. So we'll start with our main boss monster, so TELLARKNIGHT Trevere. He is so good. He has 3 really, really good effects. And so first off, he's 21-25, so big booty, decent attack stat. He says on XZ's summon, return all other cards on the field to the hand. Straight up, just bounce everything back, which is so strong in certain decks. If you if you bait out any kind of all the disruptions, all the negates from Thunder Dragons, and then you're still able to go into this card, you just wipe their entire board, because they only summon extra deck monsters. So you literally put all their Thunder Dragon fusions back into the extra deck, and Saryuja, even like that board, that monstrous board, you put everything just back into the extra deck, and that's it. And then like, what do? Not much. So Trevere is really, really strong. He also has a second effect where once per turn, it's once per turn, yeah? Yeah, once per turn you can detach 1 XYZ material from him to send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So that's really good as well. Like, obviously you know what you're playing against, because if you're playing like, wait, it sends? It does send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So you don't trigger dangers or anything, jeez. But make sure you're weary of like how much of a graveyard centric deck, because you're not trying to give them extra value, but still, it's sometimes you just want to do it because you're bouncing everything back to hand, but they're not getting everything. They're getting everything -1. So that's really good. And then his last effect is a really generic float that if this card with an XC's material is sent to the graveyard, period, you can target 1 TELLARKNIGHT monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So he dies, you special summon like Altair back, Altair special summons the Neb from grave, the Neb like searches you 1 TELLARKNIGHT from deck, and this guy died, but you literally +2 in terms of, you know, monsters on board. So he's really, really insane, all those effects combined. Then we have 3 Dark TELLARKNIGHT Batlamias. This card was made because the one problem about Trevere is that he takes 3 TELLARKNIGHT monsters. So that was the problem, and to make him easier to get out, they made Batlamias. So the main thing about Batlamias is that he takes 2 level 4 TELLARKNIGHT monsters, but his main effect just says, first off, all face-up monsters on the field become dark, and this has come up actually against Salamangreats, or it can very easily, where a lot of their link monsters need just fire effect monsters, and this just makes them dark. So if they can't out this before trying to go through their link monsters, then they just can't do it. They just can't link, and it can be very tough for them to play at that point. So But his main effect also is that you can pretty much rank up on top of him. So you can put any light Tellarknight Xyz monster on top of him by using this card as material. And also, I think you have to detach a material and discard a card. So you detach one of his materials, discard a card from hand, and then you can just drop a Trevere on top of him. It counts as an XYZ summon, so Trevere's effect to bounce everything will still trigger, and he just makes it so instead of using 3 monsters on board, because this is such a slow deck, instead of using 3 monsters on board to make Trevere, you can just make him with 2 monsters on board and any card in hand that you're okay with discarding. So he makes making Trevere so much easier, and that's why he's there. Play 1, TELLARKNIGHT Deltaros. He's decent. He comes up like randomly if Trevere is like not the way to go, or you're trying to rank up on Bat-Lamias for him specifically. He comes up every once in a while in like really specific situations, but he says once per turn you can attach a material from him to target 1 card on the field and destroy it. He targets and destroys any 1 card, so it's targeting destruction, but it's pretty good. I mean, we've seen Alternative Blue Eyes. Is that the one? Alternative Blue Eyes? I think so. The one that just pops any card, any face-up card like once per turn, but this is any card period, which is pretty good. But also, if this card on the field is sent to if this card period is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Tellarknight monster from your deck, which is actually pretty spicy. Wait, hold on. Oh, it's sent from the field to the graveyard. Damn it. I thought if this card said this card is sent to the graveyard special tonight, I was going to look at playing that extra Foolish Burial, whatever the new one that just says like send an extra deck monster to the grave, because that would literally just be such a turbo card in this deck. You just send this guy in special one, but it has to be sent from field to grave. I think this one's the same. Let's see. This one has to have an XYZ material, and it wouldn't if you sent it like that. So that's tough. Like if that was, that'd actually be so spicy and I have to change my list all up. But sorry, it does not work that way. For our 2 other like random rank up guys, pretty much we have TELLARKNIGHT Constellar Diamond and Constellar Ptolemy 7. This one's the main one, Constellar Diamond, because he has a couple of actually really spicy effects. So first things first is that while he has XYZ material, neither player can send cards from deck to graveyard. Yep, neither player can send cards from deck to graveyard. So Salamangreats with Gazelle, Striker with Hayate and Foolish Burial Goods, even like Orcus dump, and do Dangers dump? I don't know if Dangers really dump like that, or Thunder Dragons if they dump like that, but whatever, still fine. Also, it says any card that is returned from the graveyard to the hand is banished instead, which is also really good against Salamangreats. They do that every single combo, and that's how they finish off their combo with like their trap cards, as well as finishing with like Gazelle in hand, so they won't have access to either of those if you put this card on board. What is the last thing? So if you can make this turn 1, make like Bat-Lamias and put this on top of Bat-Lamias turn 1, it's gonna be very hard for your opponent to play. If they're playing like Salamangreats. Also, Striker, they can't use Kagari to add back to hand. They'd just be banished, which is really nice. So this card by itself locks Hayate and Kagari out. They have to just like kind of go into Shizuku and just play really slow and add like once per turn, which is crazy. Like once at the end of the turn, like search that way, which is pretty nuts. And then the last card says, during either player's turn, when an opponent's dark monster activates its effects, you can negate that effect and destroy it by detaching a material. So he negates any dark monsters as well, which is actually pretty good as well. Any deck that is just a dark, which is pretty relevant. And then Ptolemy 7, I think this card, all it does is that once per turn you can attach material to target a monster on the field or the graveyard and return them to the hand. So it is any card in either player's graveyard, so you can just like return your own Tellarknights back to your hand, like return an Altair so that you can extend next turn. I do play a couple generic rank 4s. I do play Exciton Knight, Baguska, and Paladynamo. Sometimes if you can make Baguska, you just make him and then put some back row behind him. Evilswarm Exciton Knight comes up specifically when you're playing against a certain deck that Trevere is not that good against, and you're better off wiping the board instead of bouncing it, because if your opponent's playing like Guru Control or Trick Stars, they have all these monsters that like cards that plus, right? You're not trying to add Hidden City and Guru back to hand so they can literally search twice next turn and just +2 off of this situation. Or with Trick Stars, you're not trying to give them Light Stage and Candina back to just plus like that. So sometimes it's better to just wipe the board completely. Baguska, like I said, really nice floodgating effect. And Starly's Paladino, he's never really come up, but he's there just in case. He makes any monster on the field, I think, 0 attack, and then its effects are negated. And if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can draw 1 card. So nothing crazy there, but he's cool. And then for the links, I do play 1 Hip Potion Ingot. Nothing crazy. Sometimes once you've ramped up and your deck is rolling, you just end up with 5 monsters on the field. You just make a Hip, and he makes all your guys a little bit bigger. And also, if he's destroyed, he can get you a Tellarknight from grave back to hand. I do play 1 I Sold. This is probably the most important link monster for weird hands. If you open like Vega with like Unical High or Altair, a lot of times you just end up making I Sold, because I Sold will search you any Tellarknight from deck to hand, essentially, and it'll just be your follow-up play for next turn. So you just make this, and then they're in grave, and you'll just have the Altair for next turn to hopefully get things rolling again on the next turn. And then I do play 1 Borlo Dragon. Again, like I said with Hip, like you end up with like, once you've ramped up, you end up putting like 4 or 5 Tellarknights on the field at a time, and at that point, you're just kind of looking to, if there's a possible like problematic monster even after that, you can just go into Borload and take it. So that's pretty much it. I would really love to see this deck get some new support in the future. We see the inadvertent support with Manhunt, the new continuous trap card that just says like target a monster on the field and take control of it permanently, but you can't activate its effects or declare attacks with it, which is fine. You don't really need to. You're probably just going to use it as link material, but still, it's still really nice. Like, just clean, continuous trap card that you can just bounce back with Trevere and then set it again and steal another thing the following turn. So it's really, really strong. This deck does some really crazy things, like with Trevere, like they have like such a few really strong pieces. You have the Neb, you have your Stratos, you have Trevere, your boss like a really powerful boss monster that wipes the board. Like you have some really powerful pieces. I think they're just missing a couple things. They're missing speed. They have a really strong resource game. They just need the speed so they can do it quicker, because they end up getting blown out sometimes against like faster decks because they just can't get things going fast enough to keep up with them. So. But guys, that's pretty much it for the deck profile. Let me know what you thought about my list. Let me know if you think there's other traps I should run instead of going in on the Trap Trick engine. I love the Trap Trick engine. It gives versatility, which is something that traps usually don't give. You usually just draw them and you have what you have, but Trap Trick lets it be, you know, whatever normal trap you want, so I love that. But let me know if you think there are some cards I'm missing here that I probably should be playing, because I don't know every card. I don't know all that much about Tellarknights. This is just the list I came up with by myself. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you thought. If you enjoyed this deck profile, go ahead and sub to the channel for more stuff from me in the future. I definitely have more deck profiles coming, so do not worry about that. And yeah, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. Peace out.